son. I'll tell you more about them in a little bit. Thought I'd intro with some music again today. But anyways, let's get to it. I'm the Zim. This is the Zim's Video Journal, episode 107. Thanks for joining. This is where I talk about everything that went down, my musical and artistic journey throughout the week. I might as well remind you, this is not the podcast. This is the video journal. But we're going to talk about the podcast first off. It was version 80 of the podcast with Scarlet Parke I dropped last week. And I wrote down a whole bunch of stuff this week in my little book. I rewrote it on this. This is going to be a long video journal, so hopefully you're down for the ride to listen and check it out. Skip ahead, skip around if you like. Whatever, it's YouTube, you know. Anyways, let's just go down the list. This episode had, I think, my favorite quote so far, at least the one that stuck with me. I haven't really quoted anybody from the podcast, but Scarlett said something along the lines of, I don't think this is correct, and I didn't go back and listen to it, but it was something along the lines of creativity doesn't stop after you write a song. You know, basically that idea. As a songwriter, as a musician in the scene, it's a super important. What that ties into is just what we have to do nowadays as musicians and artists for our craft. And if we want to do more with it, we can't just write a song and assume that that's enough. We have to write a song, we have to plan our shows, we have to book things, and this creativity doesn't stop after you write a song. Idea came up mostly with the idea of when you're planning your show, you need to put creativity in what that show's gonna be all about, you know, from the other bands, the theme, maybe a theme of it, what you do on stage, all those types of things. So it's a pretty powerful statement, in my opinion. So that's another thing. There's just a bunch of bullet points. I don't know how they're pretty random. I didn't really organize them in thought, so we'll just go down the list and see what happens, all right? I think this particular episode of the podcast, the version of the podcast, was a good one that gives you a really good idea of who I am as well, because it was like intermingled. Like Scarlett and I were able, it was a very good back and forth with the conversation, and you could get a good sense of who I am and what the way I think. So I really like that about it. I wrote down this bullet point. I'm not sure where it came from, but music is my fuel. I don't know why I wrote that down, but I thought it would be a good thing to say. It just keeps me going. Music keeps me going, I guess is the point of it. Promote your website. Okay, we started talking about what's the appropriate things to say when you're on stage. And I kind of feel like when we talked about the Gig Town stuff, which I have a bullet point in here somewhere about that as well. But I believe it's just best to say, hey, go to our website. You can find everything you need there and be done with it. Don't get deep into like, hey, go to my Facebook, give us a like, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't know. I've done it before. I'm not going to say I haven't done it, but when you're on stage, when I'm watching a performance, I kind of want them to just either tell me something story oriented, tell me something that's other than a promotional sales pitch. Tell me something about your life and what's going on and that kind of thing. Or tell me, or just get to the next song. But to spend time on the, hey, go like our Facebook page stuff, and if you spend a lot of time on that, it just doesn't do it for me. So I'm under the kind of philosophy of promote your website and say you can find us there and do it toward the end of the set. But I've also noticed that not a lot of bands have very good merch setups, you know, and that's like pretty crucial. Like have a little merch area with more information about your band and your project, a little, you know, links to your website and things like that, and your merch and your CDs and all that stuff, a card, maybe some kind of like flyer that people can take with them that has more information. I don't know, things like that. Point them toward that as well. So that's something that I think is important. I wrote down transitioning music business. I mean, that's pretty obvious, I think, these days. It's just, I think the reason why I left that here is because that conversation has come up a lot in this last week for me, and it's really, I really feel like we haven't caught up yet to the way it is as musicians. Like the big network of us as musicians have not yet caught up to the way it is. We're still kind of like nostalgic for this kind of getting discovered kind of way of the music business, and it doesn't happen anymore. So that's something. Gigtown, who will it benefit? There's the one about Gigtown. So in the podcast, I mentioned this idea of Gigtown and who is it going to benefit, and I do have answers for that one, because Andy Altman, the creator of Gigtown, has recorded a podcast with me, and I'm going to say that this is a little teaser for you to come back and listen to the podcast. It's not going to be dropped for a while, but I have answers. He's come in and talked to me about Gigtown, and so I do have answers for that. Really stoked on that, so stay tuned is basically all I can say about that, because it's pretty obvious to me who it benefits now that I've talked to Andy Altman. So check that out. But I'm going to say right now, I'm on the Gigtown train now. I like what they're about. I like what they're trying to do. I believe it's a good resource, and I can see major potential for it. So download it on your, phone or whatever. I need to figure out. I don't have, like I said on the podcast, I don't have room on my phone. It's like so janky. I don't know. I can't I have like 10 apps, and that's like all it can fit. It's retarded. But anyways, that's one thing I hate about my phone. But you don't care about that, or do you? So there it is. Download it and get on that train. And yeah, if you have questions about it, ask me or ask Scarlet or ask Andy. All of us will be able to help you out. I have a correction to make, a little behind the scenes kind of stuff for the podcast this week. So Scarlet had the sniffles, as you could probably tell, and I started to edit out some of them, but I was just like, I can't do this. I'm not going to worry about it. So I just left most of them in. That's what and the corrections for, I said it was going to drop on May 19th, and it obviously didn't. It dropped on the 25th, I believe. So that's just a correction. I need to remember not to say specifics like that on the podcast, because things get shuffled around. That's just a personal thing, a little behind the scenes. And that kind of talking with Scarlet, Scarlet would be, I think, a great podcast host. If she ever thought about making that something that she wanted to do, I think she would be great at it. Probably way better than me, but hey, I'm doing it. She's not, so whatever. I think this one's kind of out of order. I don't know where it fits in and stuff, but I was just thinking about this idea I think I mentioned on the podcast, and when I asked my guests like where they found music, and I realized I've said before, I found music really in high school. I started in third grade playing sax, but in high school is where it really said this is something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. But at the same time, it's not since the last 4 years, I'd say, or less even, that I really understand what it is that I want from music and how to achieve it in a way. And I'm struggling not to make excuses. That's one of my biggest things in my life right now, is recognizing an excuse versus just a genuine obstacle, a reality. And I'm trying to decipher what it is about my musical career and why I haven't done more with it, and what's the obstacles and what I need to do. And I know there's a lot of things. I know, right off the bat, I'm not, what I do, I'm not a virtuistic musician, which doesn't help in a way. So it's a lot more I need to work harder, essentially, which is another bullet point that's coming up. But yeah, this is some ideas I just realized in the last couple of years. And basically this journey of the video journals and the podcasts, there's a lot of what I believe I need to do within this whole thing. So I'm not going to talk about that specifically right now, but I recognize that it's just been in the last few years that I really understand. I feel like I understand what it'll take for me to go to the next level with my music. Oh, the next bullet point is that point is I put leap of faith, because we talked about that a little bit on the podcast, versus how much you're willing to work, or how much work you're willing to put in. That's what I wrote down here. The leap of faith aspect of things is, that's that's a great, I mean, you have to have a little bit of that or a lot of it, I believe, in order to achieve something in the arts, because it's not a secure place in a lot of ways. You have to step out of your comfort zone and just go, I'm not going to worry about where I'm going to make my money, and just go for it, in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of things to make sure you're in line with. You can't be foolish, but at the same time, you just got to go for it, in a sense. I'm not phrasing it right now, but that's an idea. Versus how much you're willing working. So in my situation, I believe I don't have the luxury to take as big a leap of faith, especially if I want to do what I need to do for my kids and not be a deadbeat dad type of thing, and provide the amount of money I need to provide for their school and a house for them to, so I can have them here and all those types of things. I don't feel like it's reasonable for me just to go, well, I'm going to quit it all and just try to sit on the corner and play my guitar until somebody pays me. And that's an over, simplification of it all. But it's a general idea. And so what I'm doing, working hard to do, is put in more work. So I work my 9 to 5 basically, and come home and work more, and work those hours whenever I don't have my kids, whenever I'm not around, doing things like these video journals, and working on my music, and working on the podcast, and working on things around this area that I want to achieve in, and just putting in more work, not watching TV and not wasting time as much as possible. I still waste time, I know that, and I'm trying to figure out the balance of, I'm not the type of person that can just go all the time. I need to stop every once in a while. I'm just the way I am, because it's just the way I am. I don't have that internal, just crazy, like, what's it called, like adrenaline that just keeps me going all the time. I need to stop every once in a while. Like I did this last Friday, was like, I woke up at like 2 o'clock and I didn't do anything pretty much the whole day. So it's a balance, trying to figure out try to put as much work as I can in, and balance just who I am as a person. An idea about Seattle, the Seattle music scene we brought up. It's a very hard scene to crack, in a way. It's a very hard scene to get people interested in what you're doing. And it got me thinking about this idea. You know how New York, they say, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. And in the sense that I believe they say that because in New York, there's just a lot of competition for high level of art. People are in New York. And so everybody's at a high level. So the competition aspect is, something to consider. That's why if you can make it there, it means you're the best of the best in a way. Whereas I think that same statement applies for Seattle, but in a different way. I think if you can make it here, if you can figure out everything you need to do to crack the scene and get people aware of what you're doing and all that stuff, if you apply that same tenacity in this scene, any other scene, you will make it, because it'll be easier everywhere else than here. So it's as time goes, when we get to that Andy Altman Gig Town podcast that I was talking about earlier, you'll even hear his take on it, because he's not from here. So it's interesting. It's really cool. Okay, last thing I think about the podcast was this idea of I said you have to win over an audience. We were talking about it, and we kind of went back and forth on just the idea of how to do that. I don't remember exactly what we talked about, but it was this idea of you really have to work to win over an audience, and you can't complain at them. You just have to you have to just figure out what you need to do to win them over. And it's a trick. It's hard. It's not easy. If it was easy, it's one of those things. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, but you have to figure out how it works for you. Okay, so that's the end of the podcast stuff. I'm going to get into the next portion of this. And so last week I put out we're doing Wear It Wednesday. I'm kind of sporting the Wear It Wednesday right now. And I made this short video of all the shirts I wore, and it was really cool because I did this thing, and what I realized, I'll put the link to the video in the description of this video, but I kind of went through all my shirts and did the camera editing tricks to change the shirts. And so I realized I should have done the trick where I, for all of them, because it was a much better transition than some of the ones where I spun around and did different things. So anyways, you live and learn, right? So I'm going to be trying to do more video stuff. It kind of got me thinking as well. I'm doing this particular video journal different. I've been super inspired by Casey Neistat, and I could see myself, I'm going to try to do more videos. It's like, where do you fit it in? I realized watching Casey Neistat's videos, it's like, how does he do that? He does a video blog every day, and there's lots of edits and all this stuff, and you know, the combination of doing it all the time helps you speed up the process, but also that's what he does. That's his job, is to do YouTube videos. So of course he's going to be able to do that. So I've kind of let that go, but just I'm trying to put more into these video journals and other video work that I'm doing. I won't be doing a daily video at all, but I'm trying to post more videos. Like I've been taking more videos with my phone of like shows I go to. I try to catch one song from the bands that I like at the shows and posting them on my YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube page. I'd love it if you did that. This week I went to a whole bunch of local music. It was just a crazy great week for being exposed to local music and what's going on. And the first show I went to this week was, I believe it was the first one I went to, but one saw T-Basa did his CD release show, and you know, he was amazing. He was great. Loved it. The opening band for him, I don't know who they were. I didn't really investigate, and it was one of those situations that is really difficult in the scene because there's a lot of really awesome people that make music in this community, and sometimes they don't always make really good music. And I was having a really difficult time because before I even knew who they were, it was clear that people were really excited for them, yet they were not very good. I'm just going to say it straight up. They weren't very good. And I mean, they were decent. They weren't like terrible. They weren't like train wrecks or anything, but for the amount of like enthusiasm people had for them and what they were doing, it was just kind of like, why? And I mean, it just boils down to, I think their friends were out for them, so that helps a lot. I mean, I do the same thing if I like somebody. So it's always hard. It's like, I know I'm the same way. If I like a person before I hear their music, oh, not always, but I'll be more inclined to keep liking their music. So but I was having a hard time figuring out why people were so enthusiastic for it. And then I kind of like, I didn't really talk to anyone, but I saw them interact and, you know, said hi to a couple of them kind of, and just realized that they were really awesome dudes. But I was like, man, it was tough. But anyway, I'll get off of that because I don't like to talk about things that I don't like as much. But the second show I saw, which was amazing, which kind of was this kind of weird relief for me, because when you start getting on a rhythm of when to go see shows and where to go see them and who's the good bands and all this kind of stuff, you start to understand when to go when there'll be other people there. So you can get fooled that there are a lot of people that come out to see live music in the city. And I went and saw my friend's band, Mountain and Tunnels, who are amazing. Chris Pogue, who was on the podcast, amazing band, amazing. Like, I love it. It's one of my favorite kind of sounds in the city. And it was at Connor Burns, and essentially, for all intents and purposes, there was nobody there. It was a Thursday night, I believe, and it was a ghost town. And I posted a video of one of their songs on YouTube, so check it out if you want. But yeah, so it just made me go like, okay, yes, I am not losing my mind. Some of, and a lot of, and probably most of the best music that happens in the city gets played to empty rooms. So go see Mountains and Tunnels whenever you get a chance. Next one, the one that I started this video journal off with, was Stubborn Sun. So I went on Sunday night to the Gig Town. The Gig Town had like a showcase they put together at Nectar. And Stubborn Sun, never heard of them before. And for me personally, I really enjoyed their set. They had a really great, it was a really, I don't know how to phrase it exactly, but they had a traditional kind of blues rocky sound, but brought energy to it, brought a freshness to it, and just where it looked like they were just had an edginess to it that I really enjoy. So I just bottom line, check out Stubborn Sun. I think hopefully they bring the same fire to every show, and I'd actually like to see them bring more fire. By the end of their set, like their last song especially was amazing, and if they can take some of that essence of what they did on their last song and sprinkle that more into their set and even go farther with it, and even push it harder, I think they could be something amazing. So check that out. Last thing I want to mention about the shows I saw was I went to Rainfest. I went to 2 days at Rainfest, and that was mind altering for me for a couple reasons. I've never, so like you've maybe heard before, like I feel like I'm a hardcore kid, a late blooming hardcore kid, because I am straight edge, and there's a lot of straight edge hardcore kids, and but it was just like going there and experiencing the space, and I can see, and I actually, it inspired a post that I put on Facebook that got a good amount of reaction as well, but I can see how easy it would be to misunderstand the community of the hardcore space, because the surface of it all looks violent, looks, you know, unruly, looks like there's chaos and chaotic, and that's really why it's appealing, and for a lot of people, I believe, because if you really study it, there is a rhythm to it all. They're not trying to hurt each other, you know. They're all there together to express their way together. I'm not phrasing it quite right, but it's like, I mean, of course, generally they're all together. I could see every once in a while somebody gets kind of the wrong idea and gets a little too aggressive and a little too violent, but the community doesn't fault them for that. They just kind of keep them in check, you know? So there's those ideas, and just the different styles that played through Rainfest, like how different parts of different songs would get the crowd, like instantly get the crowd doing something different, or like a different band, like two bands that were back to back that had slightly a different style, would there'd be a different energy, similar but different. It was just really cool. And my favorite part, well, two of my favorite parts, my favorite part in terms of the musical aspect of it was, and I've never seen this before, which is amazing. Like, so the pit, you had the pit, I guess they call, I don't know what they call it in their genre, but they had the pit where everybody was doing their arm flailing, kind of dancing and just whatever thing they were doing. So it would keep kind of clear until people would kind of go across the stage, and there would just be just people smashed around the edges of it. But every once in a while, when a popular song came, like a song that everybody knew, they would all kind of rush the front of the stage, and you know, every band did this, where they would drop the mic down and let the audience sing the song. But it was like, the analogy I came up with is like, if you ever been to a feeding pond at like a salmon hatchery or something, where they throw in the food and all the fish kind of jump up and eat the little you know, young fish jump and eat the food, and then it's like this bubbly swarm. That's what it looked like in the front of the stage, because people were like climbing over each other to sing part of the song, and the lead singer would grab them, and like, it was just really cool, and I loved it, and I thought it was amazing kind of like thing that happened. It was really fun to watch, and kind of like, I have a bucket list now thing for me personally. I wanted to stage dive at a hardcore show. That's my, because I don't know, it just, yeah, it just, I related to this group of people very well, and I can understand how most people will never even understand. I can see it super clearly that most people will never understand the rhythm that they have in those spaces, and it made sense to me seeing how they express, because it was really cool. It was really cool for me. The second thing that was favorite part of it was realizing, well, this kind of, I'm probably gonna blush, but the hardcore girls, the women of hardcore, are like my favorite type of, realizing they're like the kind of girl that I like. The ones that are like that, I mean, there's a spectrum, of course, but there's a lot that had this kind of style going on, which was, I looked at it and saw as a cross section of like pinup, punk, and grunge, kind of like the three kind of a cross section of those three styles, kind of had their kind of makeup and hair on point, but had this kind of punky attitude, and then but wasn't over the top, and kind of had more of a grungy kind of Converse and jeans or cut off jean kind of look, you know, flannel-ish look at the same time. It was so. Anyways, if you're a hardcore girl, let me know. So, anyways, there was that, and what else? This last week. Okay, there's two more things to mention. This last week, I recorded 3 podcasts, so I had a good week for the podcasts. And then, last thing I'll mention is or a couple things, but shows that I'm playing. I'm playing a solo show on June 10th at the Gibson showroom, part of the Belltown Art Walk, which is also the Musicians in the Raw thing that I was a part of. I got my own picture taken. And I mentioned, believe at the beginning of the last podcast, I mentioned it a few times, but I haven't really gone into depth about why I did it. And I wanted to do that here. So one of the main things, and I posted this on Facebook, but it got deleted for kind of Facebook rules, I think. So I shared the Craigslist ad of the event, and on that, the picture of it was of a woman with a guitar, and they showed one breast in the picture. So I think because there was a kind of a nude, naked nipple shot, that's probably why it got deleted. And in my post, I wrote the word naked, so like probably there's a couple of triggers for Facebook to say uh-oh, even though it really wasn't an uh-oh. But anyways, the reasons I did it, I'll try to think of why I did it. One of the main reasons I did it for myself was they're kind of all equally main reasons. To confront and talk to and address my own anxiety, because, you know, obviously taking your clothes off in a weird, strange place can be anxiety inducing. It actually wasn't nearly, that part of it was actually fairly easy. You know, the unknown aspect of it, the just kind of meeting Kari, the photographer, for the first time, and kind of the unknown driving to it was more anxiety inducing than the actual event of it, doing the project itself. So I was just like, whatever. It's kind of reckless abandon for me in a way, just going for it. Another part of it is to talk about my music and bring my musical kind of ideas in a different way. You know, find another outlet, find another place to talk about my music in a way. I thought about, you know, sometimes this idea of using nudity in a way, it can be also aligned with a desperation, because it's an easy get. But I think at the end of this, if you see it and do it and you understand the process, it's not really about that. It's not really about the shock and awe aspect. It's done artistically in a way, so I think that will be understood in the end. So I'm not too concerned about that. Then I think those are the two kind of the general main ideas of why I wanted to do it. And so I did it. So there's that. A couple other shows to mention. June 18th, the Bindle Stick and Snoqualmie, theZim and Arock, my band, we're going to play a set there, what we call our acoustic set, which is, I've been saying these days that it's actually pretty loud. It's like our original set from back in the day. It's me on guitar and Arock on drums with no electronics, but we still rock out. We're really loud. Usually people are taken back by how much we rock without anything but those two pieces. So there's that. We're going to do that. But then, you know, the Brody Nation, which I've talked about before, July 22nd and 23rd we're going to be playing that. I don't know which day yet, so we'll keep you posted, but that'll be full electronics. So there's that. That's it. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's the end of this video journal. I have no idea how long it was. There's no timer. I'm using my better camera this time. But there's no timer on it. So thanks for watching. I'm theZim. This is theZim's Video Journal. Oh yeah, I wanted to leave with one thing. If you made it to the end of this, I want to know what you're listening to. So this is going to be my new question at the end of every video journal. I'm going to ask you what you're listening to. You know, what's your jam right now? Post it in the comments of this video. Let me know. Alright, thanks. I'll see you next time. Peace.